must take into account other material considerations, most significantly, of course, the national planning policy framework, the evidence base that's being drawn together to support the district plan, and this indicates that whilst our local plan policies don't unequivocally support the development, bringing forward the development here, the requirements of the national planning policy indicate a different scenario, Chairman. And you'll see there in paragraph 7.1.10, the consequence of the change, weight to be given to save local plan policies according with their degree of consistency with the framework. We must consider the housing elements in the context of this presumption in favour of sustainable development, and we must give full weight to the policies in the national planning policy framework. Chairman, the conclusion is that if this development is considered to be sustainable, then we must approve the development. So the test for us, of course, is the development sustainable? Chairman, I'm going to pause at that point, and members may want to raise any questions or queries in relation to the policy background.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Right, members, are there any questions? Councillor Page.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Now, I fully understand the need for new homes and the proposals in this application, particularly for affordable homes, lifetime homes and retirement homes, are to be applauded. However, I'm a little confused as to what exactly we're taking on board and looking at tonight. There's so many references being made to the deficit of housing sites that we have in East Herts. Yet, to my mind, we're looking at one particular site, and I'd like to be reassured that that site that we're looking at, the application that's before us tonight, is a discrete local application and not part of applications all over East Herts.
Thank you, Councillor Page.
I'm happy to answer questions as they come along, or maybe there's sort of similar issues members want to raise. But in relation to that issue, members have in front of them a single application, and that's what they have to determine tonight. So yes, you are dealing with a single application that geographically, of course, is located, the land, as we know, to the north of Bishop Stortford. However, in relation to the policy context within which you need to make your decision, the policy context is, by virtue of the requirements of National Planning Policy Framework, does require that we have a wider consideration, not about other particular locations, but about housing delivery across the district in general. So you're not required to think about other specific locations, you're only required to focus on this specific location in terms of the impact and sustainability questions of this development. But members do need to, in relation to the policy context, they do need to have in mind the policy position, our local plan policy position in relation to housing supply as it affects the whole district. It's on those bases that 5-year figures are determined.
Thank you, Chairman. In some ways, I have certain sympathy with something that says defer once, but I don't like deferring anything. All the details here about traffic, about this site only, but this isn't the only site there. This is only part of the site, and then we've got ASR 5. When ASR 5 and the rest of this site comes up, will we take into consideration the answers we've got for this traffic survey and add that to the next one? So that means when we decide how much traffic we're going to have in town, and ASR 5 comes up, Do we consider ASL5 as a separate issue and say that only adds a little bit to the town, or do we go back and say that adds a little bit to the town plus what this gives you?
I'm just, we have representative from the Highway Authority here. I'm sure with detail of traffic-related questions, Chairman. I'm just conscious whether members want to move into other topic areas. I'm quite happy to debate be structured how you prefer, Chairman. But just on a general point, of course, the consideration of the proposals has not taken place in isolation. We are conscious, of course, as we are with all of our sites in our local plan, that there are other sites across the district and in particular settlements that always have an interrelationship. So that consideration has been had, Chairman, as part of bringing forward the proposals for you now. Chairman, I don't know if you do want to move into detailed issues around, for example, highways matters, or whether you want to deal with them on the subject order set out in the report. I'll leave that to you, Chairman.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know how our members would prefer to play this, but should we go straight into highways matters first, or should we discuss housing first? Because Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to structure the debate along subject lines, although there's clearly going to be interaction between number of houses and traffic and school provision and traffic and so on like that. I suppose I've got a bigger concern at the moment in that while I appreciate Mr. Steptoe's full explanation of the sort of policy background, we and a large number of other people have got that in front of us, and I'm concerned that the bulk of this evening doesn't turn into a series of monologues from the planning officer. I'm quite keen that we get into debating the substance of it, and I'm sort of wary about the amount of time that's being taken explaining things which a substantial part of which may be for the benefit of the broader public here, which I would support to a degree. But I really am concerned about how much time we're going to take with Mr. Steptoe talking us through the report, and certainly the pace that we're going at the moment.
I think probably what Mr. Steptoe is trying to do is to clarify, to make sure we're absolutely certain what we are discussing on the different issues. But if members are happy, we go straight into highways matters now, because there are so many issues involved around that, so we can have a little debate on that to start with. So any members wishing to discuss highways matters? Councillor Barton.
Can I come back on that, Chairman? With the whole of this, I haven't heard hardly one person say they don't want development. It's sustainable development. That's the problem. And most of that's about highways. So I think highways is the most important thing on the issue. So why did we discuss it earlier while we're fresh, rather than take it later at 10 o'clock when we'll pass anything?
Thank you, Councillor Barton. We'll go straight into highways matters. Councillors. Questions on the highways? Concerns? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I mean, as a preamble, I think it probably, I was going backtracking slightly, but I mean, I'm the one of two local members for Silverlea, so I've lived the largest part of my life in the north part of Bishop Stortford, so I'm reasonably familiar with the territory. I mean, some of my views may not go down desperately well with the bulk of the population of Bishop Stortford. Those of us who've been looking at this development over a period of time, looking at this patch of land, I think recognise that you know, there will be houses built in Bishop Stortford North, and you know, the discussions that have gone on about this planning application, and indeed other forums like the neighbourhood plan, are around shaping the development appropriately. So, I mean, on the face of it, you know, you can physically fit 2,200 houses. The applicant has shown that within this site, but the issue has clearly got to be around sustainability. In terms of the traffic, I guess my concerns fall into two areas, both of which I think have been touched on by a number of the speakers on both sides, pretty eloquently, I must say. The first one is that the development clearly does lead to increased traffic flow, increased congestion, longer journey times. But is that of a level which can be considered to be severe? And there is a high bar. But the severity of traffic, I think, is the key point in terms of the current policy framework that we're working to the national, the NPPF. The second point, or concern about the traffic that I've got, a pretty fundamental one, is about the travel planning aspects, the intent to shift people from cars to more sustainable forms of transport, particularly from the development itself. And a number of the speakers, well, the speaker for the applicant was saying Bishop Stortford's not unique. Well, actually Bishop Stortford is unique in some aspects, and certainly some of the areas where travel planning has taken place across the country. Indeed, some of the applicants used for comparison purposes, like Worcester, are comparable in some ways, but very different in others. Worcester is about three times the size of Bishop Stortford. So the figure that the applicants used for modal shift within the development is a very high figure indeed. The practical ways in which you shift people from cars to other sustainable methods of transport need a bit of testing. The proposal is for a bus service at a 15-minute frequency. Good. That will certainly help for those people who live very close to the bus route. But there also have to be people who are prepared to spend quite a bit of their time travelling, because the bus route only goes one direction. It goes anti-clockwise. It goes up Bryce Street through the whole of the new development and down Haddon Road. So if you're using that bus to and from town, one part of your journey is going to take you all the way through the new development from east to west, whether you want to do that or not. And ultimately, people on those buses are going to be in the same traffic queues as car users. So they're not going to get, the no-priority bus lanes, you're not going to get there any quicker than by car. Indeed, it's going to take you substantially longer because of the one-way routing of this particular proposal. And even that proposal is costing less part of £1 million. In terms of the people walking or cycling, I think others have said this pretty eloquently. The centre of Bishop Stortford is in a dip compared to most of this development. Although most people may be happy to walk downwards into town, the prospect of walking back out of town with anything that you purchase there means that there are very few people realistically going to do that. When it comes to cycling, yes, again, a couple of our speakers were pretty eloquent on the subject, but whether even if you are fit enough to cycle uphill, then the reality is the narrowness of the roads is such that cycles in any number are actually going to hold up traffic. There are very few points on both Haddon Road and Rice Street where overtaking at a busy time of the day is going to be practical. So, why should 1 in 4 of the potential car trips from this development to and from town turn into bus, cycle or walking trips? I think the unique situation on this site is such that there are a lot of queries over the validity of that assumption. And I think that the applicant is probably aware of that, because they've been asked over a period of time to do a sensitivity test to see what would be the effect if less than that 25% were going to change from car to sustainable transport. Indeed, our own officers, not many weeks ago, said to us that that particular sensitivity test had been requested, and to be honest, I had expected some answers to it by tonight. Maybe the answers are pretty unpalatable, and that's why we haven't got them. So there are a couple of reasons there. One, fundamentally, even with the assumptions on travel planning and smarter choices, there's a lot of congestion, there are longer journey times, there are, and I think the other aspect of this that I haven't touched on is air quality. We already have an issue in Bishop Stortford about air quality at the Hockrell junction. The suggestion that we have to set up monitoring sites in Rye Street and Haddon Road indicates to me that somebody thinks that there's at least a possibility that the traffic implications from this new development will mean that we start to breach the required levels for air quality elsewhere. And it's fine putting money into monitoring these things, but if the decision made tonight is such that we proceed with this development substantially or all of it, then monitoring it and finding out that we've breached whether it be air quality or safety or congestion targets doesn't actually help us solve it at the end of the day. The high-range report is pretty clear that the travel planning assumptions are challenging, the roads into Stortford are physically constrained such that we can't do anything substantially about that. So if this development does turn out to have traffic implications greater than those that are included in the study, it'll actually be too late to do anything about it.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sat and listening to Councillor Jones, and it's incredibly interesting, but I think we could sit here all evening and talk about traffic. And whatever happens, we love our cars. And if we have a car outside of our home, in the road in the drive, no matter how easy it might be to walk, many people still take their car. Even if there's cycle tracks, people will still take their car. So we can talk all evening about traffic, but it won't solve the problem because we will not give up our cars. You can have homes now where they've got 2, 3, even 4 cars in a household if they have, teenagers living at home. And I think, we have to focus, I believe anyway, we need homes for people, and we're not talking about the fundamental need of people needing a home to live in. And there's so many applications come before us, and some are turned down because of cars. And we're denying people the right to have a life. I'm not sure about how this is going to go tonight, but I just think we cannot spend all evening talking about transport because traffic, we're not going to solve it, because we will never give up our cars. That's all I want to say at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Page.
Thank you, Chairman. What is clear, I believe, tonight is that the major part of this decision will stand or fall on whether it will lead to severe traffic congestion. Like most members of the Development Management Committee, I have struggled to get a definition of severe congestion. What I have done is found a document prepared by Herts County Council in 2007, which concluded that the county had a unique set of factors that made it particularly vulnerable to congestion. On Tuesday, at one of our district plan meetings, we had the good fortune to have county representatives, county traffic officers present, and they concluded that there are no magic solutions to gridlock in Bishop Stortford, and there is a lack of potential to add capacity to the network. And this was a public meeting, it was webcast. Those quotes can be checked. Now, given that set of circumstances, it is inevitable that the increased traffic coming from this development will cause severe congestion. The study in 2007 identified 13 congestion hotspots on Bishop Stortford. Since then, there has been very little in the way of improved traffic management or improved road system. There have been houses or homes built in the town which has added to the traffic, and there have been homes built across the border and further homes in the pipeline across the border in Essex, which have a common theme of all roads leading into or around Bishop Stortford because of the retail offer, because of the railway station, and because of the M11. So, on the evidence that I've got, it is very important that we do consider traffic, and traffic, to my mind, is going to be the determinant of this application tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Page. In fact, we do have two county highways officers here who may have been at that meeting. Members. Councillor Simons. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just really want to talk about transport, parking, and how often our town is now gridlocked, as it was tonight. I was down at the council offices in Bishop Stortford. I couldn't even get out of the car park because of the traffic. I couldn't get up Hockerell because of the traffic. I couldn't get across onto the Dunmow Road because of the traffic. It took me nearly 3/4 of an hour to do a 10-minute journey because of the traffic. It says about that it's sustainable. I don't believe that if these houses are built, and I too agree with Councillor Moore that we do need housing, but this is not sustainable. I think we have to look at it again, perhaps test some of the other things out which highways would be able to help with. When I was trying to get to Welwyn Garden City yesterday, I couldn't even get out of Bishop Stortford. I was coming along on the bypass on the east side, before the big Tesco's roundabout. I couldn't even get onto the Tesco's roundabout because of the traffic on the A120 going towards Little Haddon. A journey that would normally take perhaps 35-40 minutes from Bishop Stortford took me nearly 2 hours, and that was mainly to get out of Bishop Stortford. Once I got out of the Little Haddon traffic lights, I was able to use the back roads and go around the back ways round Hertford, so miss the Hertford traffic. But I think, quite frankly, 2 hours to try and get out of a town that I live in is impossible. People will not want to come here. It will be the death of our high street because people will not want to sit in traffic jams for hours trying to get in and out of Bishop Stortford. Our car parks are at capacity, and if we build all these houses on their ASRs, people will go elsewhere to shop. I certainly wouldn't come into Bishop Stortford to shop if I had to wait all that time to get through a town. Thank you, Councillor Simon. I'm just wondering if Mr. Vettel and Mr. Chapwell, the two county highways officers, would like to comment at this point.
Yes, Paul Chapwell here from Hertfordshire Highways. Yeah, there's quite a few points there. On the congestion issue, as we've recognised in our formal response, we do accept that the transport assessment and the modelling does demonstrate that there will be an increase in congestion added to journey times within the town, and that's almost an inevitable consequence of a development of that size. That sort of leads you to the sort of question around severe, and what the modelling doesn't show, however, is that there's impacts that would result in any gridlock or any backing up of queues into other junctions that would really bring the network to a halt. And so, from an operational point of view, the highway network would still operate, albeit journeys would be slower through that network. Similarly, we didn't identify any specific safety issues that would occur as a result of increased traffic on those links and on the highway network, and hence our position in our formal response that yes, we recognise the routes will be congested, but from a purely sort of transport point of view, we didn't feel in MPPF terms that would could be defined as severe. On there's some comments earlier about the sort of travel planning assumptions. I've just read from some of my notes here, but the overall travel planning, we rather than request sensitivity testing, we looked at the applicant's submission on the basis of how they built up their assessment from first principles, which initially used a national database known as TRIPS to identify the number of trips that typically would be generated by development of that scale and in this type of sort of Bishop's Stortford type of location. Those trips are then compared against the National Travel Survey, which brings an element of localised travel behaviour to that, because it looks through the census data what current travel behaviour is in Bishop's Stortford, and so that is applied to those trips, and then a distribution arrived from there, which basically assesses what trips will be generated by new residents, from those living in the new development, not the wider Bishop's Stortford, just the new development. And then looking at each type of trip, typically commuting business trips, education, food shopping, non-food shopping, personal business, visiting at leisure, and we took each of those by turn, or the applicant did, and we looked at their assumptions in terms of the number of trips, and then therefore the reduction in those trips that could be achieved through travel planning and the measures associated with that. Those measures being the fact that within the neighbourhoods, they've got sort of walkable neighbourhoods within the site layout, there's on-site school provision, there's local retail provision, some employment space, there's obviously the bus route itself, and a bus-only link between the two neighbourhoods, and then at the end of the day, the sort of travel planning inducements, such as new residents having initially some free bus travel, cycle vouchers, information on car sharing, personal travel planning. They're not huge reductions, but the overall, when you apply that build-up to the number of trips that the development generates, the combined impact from all of those was that in the AMP, the shift in single occupancy car driver trips would be from 48% to 35%, and in the PMP from 59% to 48%. So they're not of the scale that's sort of 20-25%, we're not talking that at all. But we looked at the assessment from that approach, from first principles, and that's why we didn't feel it would be appropriate to then say, well, we'll reduce that by half and run the test again, because I don't think that's the appropriate approach, because it's effectively giving you two answers, but it becomes very subjective as to what the right answer is, and therefore it's not necessarily going to help the decision-making process.
To what my colleague Paul Chappell said, as a highway authority, we did ask for a sensitivity test for smarter choices. Smarter choices are aimed for those residents already living in Bishop's Stortford. They have an established travel pattern. There is a justification to see why, whether the smarter choices will work. So that's one of the reasons we asked for a sensitivity test. As far as the travel planning, the traffic assessment, we have been in discussion with the applicant, traffic consultants for nearly 2 years.